Right guys, welcome back to the championship rounds. So, slightly different video today. As you can see, Sam's not here. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going through the YouTubers versus TikTokers card and giving you my predictions and the route to victory for each of the fighter, as I believe is. Again, don't bet based on my predictions because I am not right 100% of the time. I'm only right 99.9% of the time. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the video and start breaking down these fights. I'm only going to be doing the top 3 fights because the others, frankly, I don't really know too much about. But the top 3, I've had a look at the sparring footage that's come out, and obviously I've been following YouTube as a child since, I don't even know, I've probably been watching since I was like 10, 11 years old. So obviously I'm clued up with a lot of the more popular YouTubers on the card. So the first fight I'm going to be jumping into is DEJI versus VINNIE Hacker. So DEJI, if you don't know, is KSI's brother. He's got around 10 million subscribers on YouTube, and he has one previous amateur fight, and that was against, yeah, the biggest troll in boxing at the minute, Jake Paul. So DEJI lost that fight. That was on the first Logan versus KSI undercard. The main reason behind it was his conditioning was very poor going into the fight. He managed to land some shots on Jake, but as the rounds got later and later, Jake just started picking him off, and yeah, he was tired and his corner threw in the towel. In terms of the actual skill that he showed in that fight, I think with DEJI, he managed to actually put together some combinations which was really good. And Vidal Riley, who previously trained KSI, said that he does have a lot of natural power, DEJI. He said that he was actually carried more power than KSI. So that will be interesting to see. I think the main thing for DEJI, the route to victory here, is just making sure that he has trained hard and prepared well for this card. And we'll know that from the shape that he comes in, really. In terms of VINNIE Hacker, where do we start with this guy? I'm not a big TikTok follower, but just in terms of how he was speaking at the press conference, in terms of the main reason he's there is for the money, I just think I don't think he's going to show much in this fight. I'm open to be proven wrong. Hopefully he comes in and puts on a good performance and gives DEJI a challenge, but I just can't really see it that way. In terms of that fight, my prediction is that it's going to go to the 2nd or 3rd round, and I just think DEJI's going to be too much. He's going to overwhelm him, and VINNIE doesn't really have much of a reason as to why he wants to be there other than the cash grab, and I think he's going to crumble, and it will either get stopped by his corner or it will be a TKO. So that is my prediction for the first fight. Right, so the second fight, and I think this is bound to be fight of the night, is going to be Anisong Gibb versus Taylor Holder. So these are the 2 most experienced boxers on the card. Anisong Gibb's been looking for redemption since the first round knockout victory by Jake Paul. So if you didn't know what happened, just before the COVID pandemic kicked in, Gibb actually managed to get himself a fight against Jake Paul. He had the whole UK with him. They fought in Miami, and unfortunately for Gibb, it didn't quite go to plan on the night. From the training footage he released, it looked like he was working very hard, so it's unfortunate that he didn't get to show his skills on the actual night. But the way it went down was there was a 3 knockdown rule, which was explained to both fighters previous, and unfortunately for Gibb, he got clipped by the first one. And as he's new to professional fighting, it was his first professional fight, he didn't quite just give up that round or to recover. He went straight back in there, which we're accustomed to from Gibb's amateur fights against Jay Swingler and Max Does FIFA. So yeah, that was a terrible loss for him, but he's been looking for redemption, and as he says, redemption in Miami, this fits almost perfectly. He's managed to put himself on the card though against possibly the best boxer from the TikTok side. In terms of how Gibb wins this fight, so if you look back at Gibb's 2 previous amateur fights before the Jake Paul fight, I think the main thing with Gibb is that he had relentless pressure. However, his defense would let him down sometimes, and he would also take a lot of hits. So I think with him, he needs to apply that pressure, but it needs to be a lot more calculated this time. The defense needs to be better, and of course he needs to stay more upright. than the last fight. Obviously, he got taken the mick out of a bit for his stance, people calling, saying that he looked like a crab, etc. But he says that he's been working on his power, which is also good, because power plus volume, that is a real dangerous combination, as we all know. So it's very interesting to see how Gibb will fight in this fight. In terms of Taylor Holder, he is, to be the most experienced person on the TikTok side, he's not had any fights that I could actually see. I think he might have just had some boxing training. There's the footage of him on the pads, but as we all know, the pads don't really mean anything. Like an average Joe can look good on the pads. I've seen a bit of footage from his sparring. I think what Taylor Holder does really well is that he has got a lot better technique. It's cleaner than Gibbs, and it's more revised. So when he's throwing his shots, his arms are coming back and he's keeping his arms up at the same time, and he's throwing them with proper technique, using his whole body to throw those shots, which is really good. I think what he may struggle with is the pressure from Gibb. But if he uses Jake Paul's game plan, sits on the outside and picks his shot off, which he could very well do because he's got good technique, I think that would be the route to victory for Taylor Holder. Okay, in terms of my prediction for this fight, so this is going to be the toughest one to call. I believe the fight goes the entire distance with this one. I don't see either of them knocking each other out. You've obviously got the bigger gloves, and it's 2-minute rounds for this fight. My prediction is that it goes the full distance, and I believe because Gibb is going to be the aggressor, that he will win on points at the end of this fight. I just think if he can put on that relentless pressure and his defense has tightened up, it's going to be very, very overwhelming for Taylor Holder, and I think it'll be interesting to see what his cardio is like and whether he can actually hold up to do that pressure. But yes, my prediction on that fight is a decision victory for Anisong Gibb. Right, the final fight. Two complete polar opposites here at the minute in terms of how they've conducted themselves. Austin McBroom hasn't really put out much footage apart from yesterday. So yesterday was the first time he's actually really released any footage from his training camp. There were some real positives from that, which I'll dive into in a second. But I think the main talking point was how rash and in-your-face Bryce Hall has been about this whole event. He's also kind of overlooked Austin McBroom by suggesting that he wants to fight KSI next, which is usually never a good idea in combat sports, to overlook your opponent. In terms of Bryce Hall, there's a lot of sparring footage of Bryce Hall online. He seems like a real emotion-based fighter. So when he is fighting, if he gets clipped, he rushes in and he wants to almost take the other guy's head off. You see him loading up quite a lot on his punches. I think that may be an issue, but I basically think that Austin McBroom, from his sparring footage that he released yesterday, actually allows his power to translate into his shots because he steps off from his opponent. He uses the range very well. Whereas the sparring footage I've seen of Bryce Hall is he, in his aggressiveness, kind of smothers his opponent. So he doesn't have that room to let the shots fly. So I think for my prediction for this fight is going to be Austin McBroom with a potential TKO in the later rounds, maybe 4th or the 5th, based on that he's just going to let those shots go. And it looks like Austin has a considerable amount of power in comparison to Bryce Hall, who had a sparring session against Stormedy, but it didn't really look like he was damaging them that much, and he would smother him too often. Okay, so that is my predictions for the YouTubers versus TikTokers card. I thought I wanted to do this because there is a lot of talk about it online. I know the boxing purists aren't always too keen on these kind of events, but they do bring new eyes to the sport of boxing. So in that sense, I think it's a win-win, really, isn't it? If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to our channel where we actually talk about real boxing and UFC as well. If you want to stay updated with the latest combat sports news, please follow us on Instagram as well at thechampionship_rounds_official, where we post daily. And we will also be doing a giveaway at 100 followers. We're only 10 followers away, so if you see this video, go and subscribe and you may be in with a chance of winning yourself something special. That's it from me. Peace.